want it.
Hello and welcome to the Barely Noticed podcast, a podcast focusing on queer history and the history of bear subculture. In this episode, we are joined with 2006 Mr. IBR Daddy Bear title holder Ali Lopez to discuss his life, his own experiences in the community, his activism and charity work, and his own perspective and life experiences as being part of the bear and leather communities. He has written articles and pieces on representation in the community, as well as on his own Afro-Latino heritage. He has been interviewed on the Bear World magazine, and he has received the Bear World Magazine Icon Award. And he has contributed in many ways to the forming of leather and bear community spaces, especially with regards to representation and intersectionality. Ali Lopez, do you prefer Mr. Lopez or Ali or
Ali's fine. Ali's
Ali?
fine.
Thank you
Let's
so much
not
for
be
coming.
formal. But just also, I'm the current Mr. International Leather Bear.
Oh, congratulations. Okay.
I got the title in 2019, and unfortunately, they haven't had another contest. That's a long story.
Oh,
So as of now, I'm the last. I'm a unicorn, just like in the background.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I really like the movie The Last Unicorn. That's a whole nother.
Yes, I love that too.
It's a really depressing movie though. Like when you really as a kid, you take off your nostalgia glasses and you watch it. It's like this is about mortality and death and a decaying unicorn. Like this is a really dark, shitty show, but it's very good. I like it. But anyway, yes, thank you so much.
You can look at it that way, or you can look at it at the beginning of knowledge for a small group of people that learned from the unicorn. Okay. So you can look at it that way too.
Okay. I think I'm going to look at it that way. Okay. Well, thank you, Ali, for coming on. Let me start off by saying it's an honor to have you on. It's a pleasure to have you on, discuss your life and experiences and
the pleasure's mine.
Thank you. And before we get to discussing anything bear related or leather related, maybe you could just tell us a bit about yourself, maybe about your life, where you grew up, your background. What can you tell us about Ali Lopez?
Okay. Well, my story began actually in Colorado. My dad was Second World War, Korean conflict, and Vietnam Army vet. When he retired in 1967, he sent the family back to Puerto Rico, and that's where all my family is from. I grew up in Puerto Rico until I was 17. I joined the military. I was an EOD tech, that is an explosive ordnance disposal bomb tech, which specialized in dismantling chemical weapons at one point. Once I figured out my sexuality, I got out of the military because I got tired of lying. Because as an EOD tech, you have to take psychological evaluations every 6 months to make sure that you're not going to harm yourself.
Sure.
And you get tired of, once I figure out my sexuality, you get tired of lying and you're afraid that you're going to be found out. And my unit was very aggressive about finding the gays and getting them out of the military with a dishonorable discharge. This was in the 80s. Took me a little while to figure out how to meet other people like me, other gays, and I started going out to the Baltimore Hippo, which was a dance club in Baltimore. As a matter of fact, the day that I went there, I went during Halloween so I could make myself up so people couldn't recognize me, because I was still in the reserves at the time. And the moment that I walked in, I was like, wow, this is a completely different world. The funny thing, and I remember this like it was yesterday, the drag performer was performing a piece from The Little Mermaid where Ariel gets taken her voice by Ursula. The reason why they chose that song was because Divine was the inspiration for Ursula.
Mm-hmm.
And the neat thing about it, Divine had passed away recently, and it was a crash course on learning about myself. So from that moment on, I started going to the hippo, hiding in plain sight, but not finding who I was. I'm a very good dancer, not bragging, but I love to dance. It comes with the Puerto Rican blood. And, growing up, I love to dance. I can dance just about anything. But anyhow, I was teaching a group doing the electric slide, and I met this hot guy that I was like, oh my God, he's what I like, which was the stocky build guy or red hair uh, by the name of Dave. And he was my first sexual encounter. But not just that, he happened to have a copy of Bear magazine.
Oh,
And
nice.
when he was talking to me, he was like, oh, you're such a hot bear. And I'm like, what's a bear? And you don't know what a bear is? And he pulled the little leaflet, because at the time Bear magazine was small. So he pulled it out and showed it to me, and I'm like, oh my God. So I took him home because he was from West Virginia, and we had a wonderful time. And it was my first experience. And after that, I was like, oh wow, I'm a bear. Later on, because at the hippo, many bears didn't go to, I heard some of the people that I used to dance with talking badly about the leather bar called the gallery. Oh, you don't go there. There's a bunch of perverts and blah, 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 and they're wearing leather and all this other stuff. And I'm like, why are you putting down other gays? They're like,
Mm.
well, they're not like us. And I'm like, okay. So one night I decided to go. And the moment that I walked in, I was home.
Mm.
There were people, not exactly that looked like me, but there were people that were very much either bears or leather people. And it was very intriguing to me. I didn't know much about the environment, but to me, it was alluring. I happened to meet two people that night. One of them was Roger Ream, who ended up being Mr. International Bear Rendezvous 94 and 95 Grizzly. Um, so we start talking, and when I get nervous, I talk a lot. So I probably burned his ear out. But we started a friendship right there. And then later on, I ended up meeting Steve Kenny, which was a member of the club that I belonged to, the Centaur Motorcycle Club in DC. And Roger introduced me to Bear and Leather. Steve Kenny introduced me to the leather community. I didn't know it then, but I was in a cross section of both. I I was interested in. I took the mentorship of Roger and Steve, and then Roger introduced me to his husband, who is another one of my mentors, um, Robert Remington, um, who also happened to be a martial artist. And I have been taking martial arts since I was 11 years old. So the connection was there, but not just a connection of the martial arts, but the philosophies and so much that both the partnership of Robert and Roger taught me and prepared me for being the person that I am now. I'm very grateful for their mentorship, but also Steve Kenny was very instrumental in my upbringing as a leather person. So with all that combination, I started to become the person that I am now. Um, as in the 90s, the beginning of the bear community started in the area. And with that, the Chesapeake Bay Bears began in the area. Um, Bob and Roger invited me to go to one of their meetings, which was going to be done in Remington's in Washington, D.C. Um, at the time, I was working at a pet store. I am the original pet shop boy. Um, I'm I have a background on aquatics and animal husbandry since I was a little kid. But anyhow, that always kept me busy because I was working retail and you don't get much time off for retail. So I happened to be off this weekend. Uh, and I went to this meeting because I wanted to be part of the Chesapeake Bay Bears and I wanted to see what it was all about. Mm. Well, Bob and Roger were there and we had a wonderful time. But at one point in the evening, the guy that was the president of the club, which I think he was a little inebriated, and I'm not excusing him for what he said to me, but he came up to me and said, "I am sorry, but there's not such a thing as a black bear." And I wanted to be angry and I wanted to actually lash out, but I know my temper and I didn't want to embarrass my friends and I didn't want to be the angry black guy. So I left. On my way home, which was about an hour from DC, because I lived in Baltimore County at the time. I was crying and upset, and I said, "Why did you leave?" He's the one that has the problem, first of all. Second of all, biologically or animal husbandry wise, there's more than one species of bear that has a dark skin or brown color. As a matter of fact, for those of you that are not that up on your biology, polar bears, their skin underneath their fur is black. Their fur is actually the first example of fiber optics in nature because their follicle is actually hollow to be able to absorb light to go into their skin. A little bit of biology for you.
That's a really fun, colorful metaphor. Huh, okay. Huh.
So I decided, okay, so I'm going to be as visible as possible. Whenever I have time to be able to go to one of their activities, I will be there. I cooked whenever they had a cookout. I helped with raffles. I helped with everything they needed. And every time that I met someone, "Hi, my name is Ali Lopez. I'm a member of this club." Gotcha. I wanted to make sure that people understood that we are part of the community for two reasons. Education is the only way to teach bigots that they're wrong. And we need to make sure that we expand our acceptance of others in our community. Because if, as a gay community, we want to be accepted by everybody else, why the fuck are we telling people that they're not welcome in their events?
Right.
Doesn't make sense. So we want to be accepted, but we want to be, oh, well, you're not the right color, you're not the right shape, you're not the right sex. That's not how you become a community. That's not how you build acceptance.
Right.
It takes a village to be able to raise this leather bear that at one point it was a leather cub. And thanks to my mentors in the Centaur RNC, this is what I became. And I wanted to not just be your average bear. I wanted to be able to help others, because that's something that is very much ingrained into me. In Puerto Rico, I was an altar boy. And again, mentorship is something that became a part of my life. The priest that was in charge of the altar boys, his name was William Neville. He was actually American, but he went by the name of Padre Guillermo because he spoke perfect Spanish. He basically, being in my hometown for a very long time, he actually married my parents.
Oh.
He always told me that I was different, but my difference wasn't that I was gay. He wanted me to be educated in languages. He taught me Latin. He taught me Italian. He taught me Greek. I learned history. He wanted me to be able to make my own decisions about what I believed in. So when it came to Christianity, he didn't hold anything back. He showed me the books that I needed to read to understand what colonialism was, how Puerto Rico was colonialized, what the Spanish, what the British, what many other cultures have done through the years to subjugate other cultures, and how to actually be a better person and not take that in an aggressive way, but find a way to change cultures by making sure that we fight with our brains and not just with our brawn.
Mm. Mm.
So he was instrumental in making sure that I knew who I was. At the time, I didn't know that I was gay. I didn't figure it out until later on in the military. But he made sure that I had the tools, languages, making sure that I put my mind into useful things instead of wasting my time in machismo and in trying to be a more macho than everybody else. He knew that I was a tough little kid because he's seen me fight. But he wanted me to be more than just that. He wanted me to be armed with the proper tools to be able to help others. And that's the other thing that he taught me. Anytime that you have the ability to change the world, the only way you can do that is by acting on it. Not just by, oh, this is going on, so don't do anything about it. That's not my way. I'm very grateful that with all the contests that I entered, I didn't enter them to win a contest. Steve Kenny was the person that actually not pushed me, because he just nudged me. Mid-Atlantic Leather Weekend in 1992 was looking for contestants, and I didn't have leather. At the time, like I said, I was working as a retail guy, making $9 an hour. I didn't have leather. Leather is expensive. It's not cheap. But Steve Kenny was like, "You're a great guy. I think you have great quality, and I think you need to be in this contest because there's no one like you. And I want people to see you." And I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is the right thing for me. And he's like, just do your best. Just enter the contest. Have people see someone that looks like you as a bear, as a leather man. Have someone see you, because there's other people out there that don't know who they are, and they need to see someone like you. And he always told me, just go and do your best. I entered the contest. I didn't win. I didn't place, but I had a great time. Then later on, the next year, I entered the Highwaymen's bear contest as a cub. And lo and behold, I won cub. So no big deal. That was great. And no, there were no obligations with that title. So that was kind of cool. But then more stuff started to happen and more contests, and I started becoming more involved in that part as a bear. And in 1995, I decided to go to international rendezvous, an international bear rendezvous, and I was the first bear of color to enter that contest. I didn't place. Didn't matter. The main thing I wanted to do was so people saw someone that looked like me. If I didn't win, that was no big deal. The victory was actually in just entering the contest.
Right.
Because I didn't want anyone to go through the same thing that I did. I didn't want someone to go to a young black bear that is looking for a place to belong and go, I'm sorry, you don't belong here. I didn't want that. And I continued whenever I could volunteer to be a part of a contest or be a part of the contest myself, I would do it. For years, whenever I went to San Francisco, I either would volunteer as security, where people could see me that there was a bear back there that looked like me. I entered the contest many times. Again, I didn't enter them to win. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. About 2-3 months before the hurricane hit, I went to New Orleans as manager of the store that I used to work for. I moved to California for 4 years and was not very happy there. It was too expensive. The money that I was making wasn't enough to be able to survive. And I came for a wedding of one of my ex co-workers at the store, and the owner of the store came to me and said, I love when you used to work here. You know your stuff. How about if we offer you assistant manager position and you come back? And that gave me the opportunity to come back to Maryland to the Aquarium Center, which was one of the largest aquarium stores in the United States at the time. And I decided to just put my head in as the assistant manager, ended up becoming the general manager of the store. And I would go into different trade shows to buy items or fish for the store. And we went to New Orleans, and I fell in love with the city. Then Katrina hit, and nobody was doing anything. The government failed the city. So a group in Baltimore decided to do superheroes for Katrina. A bunch of drag queens and different people from the leather community, and I participated. Like I said, I'm a very good dancer. So I dressed up as Bishop from the X-Men, and I did Take Me to Your Heart by Rick Ashley. I'm gonna Rick roll you.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
We raised over $3,000. The next year was International Bear Rendezvous, and the money that was going to be collected from Bear Rendezvous was going to be donated to the victims from Katrina. So it was calling. And I went and did the contest and had a wonderful time, met some wonderful individuals. I think there were 22 contestants.
Okay.
And one of them was Pedro Veral, who won Mr. Bear. He was from Spain, so of course I was the translator because I spoke Spanish. Actually, I speak also a variant of Spanish, which is Andalusian in Catalan, because it's something else that I learned
Nice.
when I was growing up in Puerto Rico. So we had a wonderful time. And when they announced the winners, there's a video floating out there somewhere. You can see my face going like, I fucking won?
Nice.
Because I was not expecting to win. Every time that I have entered a contest, I never expected to win. I only entered the contest to represent and for a cause, to help the community that I believe in. So that year, besides getting my patch, which was by the way, all the patches from International Bear Rendezvous were made specifically designed by Frank Frisch.
Oh.
Yes, a lot of people didn't know that he actually worked at Mr. S, and he would make all the designs for the leather.
Oh, wow.
For the patches. So I was very proud to wear that patch because it represented New Orleans. It was in the colors of New Orleans. And I had a wonderful t-shirt that was also made by him that I kept until last week. As a matter of fact, I just gave it to Les Wright with the envelope that actually said that I won Mr. Daddy.
Aw.
Because that that vest is actually have been donated to the Leather Archives.
Gotcha.
So, because I want to make sure that someone sees once they do an exhibit, and I'm hoping that they do an exhibit, not because it's mine, because that's not the point. The point is so someone goes, there's a Black man that won International Mr. Daddy at Bear Rendezvous. I'm the only one that is Afro-Latino that has won that contest and has won International Mr. Leather Bear. And it's not about race. It's not about acolytes. It's about making sure that someone else doesn't go through the same pains that I went. And unfortunately, it still happens, but we need to change that. The only way we can change it is by education and by making sure that we ourselves put ourselves out there, because you can complain all you want to, but if you don't do anything about it, doesn't change one fucking thing.
Right.
So it's all about making sure that we change the perception and that we put ourselves out there. Yes, we are different. Everyone is. I'm a weirdo. I admit it. I'm very weird, but I'm also very happy to help anyone that needs help. It's all about making sure we are part of this community.
Right, right. And one of the things that you discuss in your interviews and in your posts is that initially as you said, when you joined in on these leather and bear events, that there were many times and examples where you faced or experienced racial discrimination, like that example with was the guy in charge of the event that said, you're not
He was
welcome
the
here.
president of the club.
Okay.
He was the president of the club. One funny anecdote about the whole thing. In 1995, the Chesapeake Bay Bears held a bear contest. They had, I think it was 4 categories: a bear, muscle bear, cub, and hunter. They had 4 categories. So I decided to enter under the muscle bear because I used to power lift. I hurt my back, so I'm not more doing powerlifting anymore, but I still have somewhat the build, and I'm still pretty strong, thank God. But I don't pick up 750 pounds anymore.
Sure. Right.
But anyhow, um, in the same category that I entered, the guy that told me there wasn't such a thing as a black bear
Right.
entered the contest, and I won.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Karma's a bitch.
Right. That's an interesting
And
twist of
sometimes it
irony.
comes in black.
Right. And well, and if I may ask, after you won this title, the Mr. International Daddy Bear title, uh, what exactly followed from all that? Did you sort of experience an intensification of like racial discrimination, where people screaming
Oh,
in
I
your
got
face?
a lot of hate mail. There
Uh,
was a lot of hate mail. But the thing is, um, the hate is only fuel to my fire. All you're doing is just making me go out there more and more and more. Because if you can understand that there's people like me out here that are part of your community, that's your problem, not mine.
right. And this question might be a bit of a leading one, but in your experience in kind of the long-term development of both the leather and the bear community, with respect to racial discrimination and racism, have you seen things improve? Have you seen things fluctuate? Have you seen things remain stationary, or
Well,
are there any trends that you've
they improved for a little while. Actually, it's funny that you asked me that question. Um, to me, things were getting better until Trumpism came about.
Hmm.
And I'm not trying to be political, but a lot of the people that had ideologies about race
Hmm.
came out of the woodworks when they had someone to follow, someone not to hide their true intentions, which is sad. And this is not just on the bear community, but on even in the main gay scene, you were seeing people discriminate because they don't fit in,
Hmm.
which blew me out of the water. Um, if I can't remember the name of the website, but there was a group on Facebook that musclebears.com or musclebears um, group, excuse me, that in their questions asked to the to be a member, uh, it said if you're black, Asian, you're not welcome here. And
Oh,
this was all over the place. This was actually the reason why I enter um, International Mr. Leather Bear, besides the fact that Puerto Rico got hit
sure.
with Hurricane Maria, because that was the other catalyst. But before all that happened, there was this big uproar because this group on Facebook was basically discriminating against Africans, Black African Americans, and Asian Americans.
Hmm.
If you're any of those part of those communities, we don't want you here.
Oh,
And oh, I was not a happy camper. I lashed out against that, and I said, "Oh, really? So this is the way it is."
hmm.
So I decided to enter International Mr. Leather Bear because of that reason.
Mm.
Um, but it wasn't the only one. Also, Puerto Rico got hit. Like, I've been through hurricanes since I was a little kid. I
Mm.
know how bad things can be. We never got hit by a category 4 before. And losing over 4,000 people with no help from the United States government, because all the orange guy could do was toss paper towels,
Mm.
broke me.
Right.
My mother was still living in Puerto Rico. She was affected big time. Besides the fact that she didn't have an income because my mom was not working. She's been disabled for a very long time.
Sure.
At the time, I didn't know she had Alzheimer's, because
Mm.
no one noticed that she had Alzheimer's until I brought my mother to live with me and my husband in the United States. Um, so during that time, for about almost a year, I was taking care of my mom here while raising funds to try to help Puerto Rico. Once again, I'm very thankful to the Centaur Motorcycle Club for their brotherhood and listening to me about donating money to help Puerto Rico. Not just all Puerto Rico, but the LGBTQ community in Puerto Rico, that many of them are bears that are emerging leather bears, that no one knew anything about. I didn't know because I didn't live there. But when I went to Puerto Rico, I found that there's bears there,
Mm.
and I helped them because they're my people.
Right.
And the centaurs have raised over, oh, $25,000
Oh, wow.
for that we have donated to Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
So I'm very proud to be a part of this organization. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't take the credit for it, but that's one of the reasons why we put Mid Atlantic Leather Weekend every January.
Mm.
The money that is raised from the proceeds goes out to the community. We can give as much as $100,000 to different organizations, including the Leather Archives. And I'm very proud of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is your involvement with charity and all the charity work that you've done. And I had known about your the proceeds that you developed to help with the victims of Hurricane Katrina, but I had no idea about the recent hurricanes
Yeah,
in Puerto Rico.
I,
Huh.
I couldn't I couldn't in a million years not help my island.
Mm.
Um, I had a hard childhood because even though I love my parents, um, I had a really rough relationship with with my mom. I was always a child she didn't want, because she wanted a girl, and I'm the youngest, and a boy came out.
Mm.
And I always been very independent. I always been very set on, I'm gonna do this, and this is the way that I'm gonna do it. And my mom wasn't too crazy about that. With my dad, it was a different story. My dad had PTSD, and I learned to be quiet, because whenever something dropped, he would lash out and take it out on us kids. So I learned to be in the background. But one thing that I didn't expect is that me and my dad were actually the same person. And that's the reason why we butted heads all the time. because my dad had a very strong sense of justice and fairness in helping his community. My dad lied about his age to join the army at 16 to go to Second World War.
Wow.
And he stayed in the army for 23 years, serving from 1943 to 1967. Put a roof over our heads, worked his ass off. And even though we didn't get along in many things, I love my dad.
Mm.
It wasn't until the day that I joined the army that I left that I figured out that my dad loved me, because I had never seen my dad cry. And when I came back from basic training before I went to AIT, we had a long conversation. And I started to understand that I was him. I would have stayed in the military if it wasn't because I was gay and I was afraid of being dishonorably discharged, because in the 80s, that was a big possibility. And it wasn't just for me, but I didn't want to betray my dad in that way.
Mm.
I never told him that I was gay. My mom didn't find out until after my dad passed away. It's gonna be 10 years actually this year in December 6th. But dad was an amazing man. He put his life on the line for people he didn't even knew. And that's, a lot of people talk about meeting their heroes. I live with mine.
Um, yeah,
I miss them a lot.
yeah, that is really beautiful that you had your dad to look up to, and I'm sure that growing up with a lot of his mindset, that's helped you in many ways. It's propelled you to do the things that you do, and to be the voice that you are in the community.
I try. I don't
Yeah.
always succeed, but at least I give it a fucking try.
Right. Well, I I suppose another question I wanted to ask is it's similar to a question I asked a little bit earlier, but in your own experiences within both the leather and the bear communities, what ways have you seen it change? If at all, what in what ways have you seen parts of it remain stationary? Do you see any sort of like broader like sociological developments or changes or?
Well, I'm not an expert, but there have been some positives and some negatives.
Mm.
Um, we need to stop trying to pigeonhole everybody into a little box,
Mm.
because people are different. Everybody's different. And we can't expect everyone to fit in a little box. We have to allow for changes in our community. Sometimes we take it too far, but so it's I guess it's like an elastic. You know,
Mm.
you have to uh, see how far it stretches, and when you let it go, it seems to come back to the same form. Um, we have to respect our trans bears.
Mm.
Um, there's more to life than biological sex.
Right.
Um, we have to learn science, for crying out loud. We have to be able to set ourselves aside. I don't have all the answers to everything. But if you ask me to address you in a manner, the least that I can do is try to address you in that manner.
Mm.
Respect is a road that goes both ways. You have to be able to give it to be able to receive it.
Mm. Right.
We have to allow ourselves to learn from each other. So, okay, maybe we won't be able to understand everything at once, but at least open your mind to try to. Minds are like parachutes. They only work when they're open.
Huh. I'm gonna use that. Right.
It's a fact. So just take people at face value. And the thing that I always tell people is that people will show you who they are. When they show you who they are, believe it.
Mm.
That goes for the good and that goes for the bad. As seeing the changes in the leather community, in the bear community, in the last few years, you actually have seen changes on seeing more bears of color winning titles and going for titles. They don't have to win to be accounted for, but it's wonderful to see people like Tariq, Thunder Knight. He just won Mr. World Bear. Buddha, Onyx. He won Cub the year before. Seeing mama bears like Sunny, like Daddy Danger, seeing people that are actually going out there, putting themselves out there and trying to be part of the community and helping the community, that's what it's all about. We have to allow ourselves to be able to see and welcome these people. Look at Onyx. There's so many members of Onyx in the leather community. They come in all colors and races, and it's wonderful to see. I want to see more leather men of color. I want to see and that's not saying just African Americans, Asian Americans. I want to see all of it. One of the things that we also have to keep in mind this year coming up, 2025, is going to be the 30th anniversary of the enactment of the Bear Friendship Flag that was actually created here in Maryland, Washington, Virginia, by the Chesapeake Bay Bears, by Craig Burns and Paul Swinski. And I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing his name properly.
Right.
Because they both deserve credit. And one of the things that I'm very proud of, I was at that meeting that flag was voted into existence.
Oh, wow.
So me being part of the Chesapeake Bay Bears might not have been thrilling for some people, but I'm hoping that one of the influences for putting those color patterns into that flag probably came from bears of color.
Oh.
So Ursus americanus is the actual scientific name of the American black bear. So go for it.
Gotcha.
Yes, I speak Latin too.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Lopez, Ali, for coming onto the podcast for an interview. Maybe as a closing query, do you have any maybe closing remarks or advice? I know that we started the interview discussing mentioning unicorns. Do you have like maybe a unicorn-esque quip for the end or?
Well, not so much of a unicorn, because unicorns are one of my favorite animals, mystical animals, but dragons are I'm actually a dragon by the Chinese zodiac. But anyhow, there's something that I hold very dear, which is one of the organizations that I volunteer for. This is going to be my 21st year volunteering for helping orphans prosper everywhere. which is an organization in Baltimore, Maryland, and I dress up as Santa for them.
Oh,
And this is going to be my 21st year. Last year we did 7,000 kids between helping orphans prosper everywhere, BND Baltimore Love, and the charities in Prince George's County. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm hoping that if you have the time, anyone that has the time, volunteer. It's hard work. It's not easy, but God, it's so worth a while. There's nothing more wonderful to me than seeing the smile of a kid when you give him that toy. And when Santa asks them, what is your favorite subject in school?
right.
Take the time to help your community, not just the gay community. We're a part of a world that needs us, needs the LGBTQ outlook, because we come from magic. In Native American culture, we are two-spirit people. We have magic running through us. In those cultures, we would be considered shamans. Let the magic flow freely.
Well, Ali, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. My pleasure.